In the peaceful neighborhood of Maplewood Grove, the early morning was filled with the gentle chirping of birds, the light rustle of leaves, and the aroma of blooming flowers. However, this serenity was abruptly shattered one fateful day. Andréa Hartman, a seasoned paramedic known for her calm demeanor and unwavering commitment to saving lives, sped through the meticulously maintained streets in her ambulance, sirens blaring. The routine of this upscale suburb had been interrupted by a frantic 911 call concerning a cardiac emergency, and every second counted. Andrea's heart raced as she navigated past well-trimmed hedges and grand homes, a sense of urgency filling every fiber of her being. The call had come from Thomas Harrison, a worried husband whose 77-year-old wife, Margaret, had a history of heart issues and was reported to be in critical condition. She could practically hear the clock ticking in her mind, a nagging reminder that time was not on their side. Yet just as Andrea and her partner, Leo, arrived at the Harrison residence, they were met with an unforeseen obstacle. A security guard named Marcus Delaney, an individual emblematic of misplaced authority. Brandishing a stun gun, Marcus stood unyielding at the entrance, declaring that no one could enter without proper authorization. The scene quickly morphed from one of urgency to absurdity, as Andrea stood bewildered, her paramedic badge shining in the morning sun, the emblem of her service aimed at saving lives, now rendered useless against a rigid enforcer of neighborhood rules. "Please, my partner is calling for the gate to be opened. We have a life at stake," Andrea implored, her voice tense with frustration. But Marcus, puffed with the inflated sense of responsibility often harbored by those in security positions, lambasted her with the community rules. His indifference to her desperate pleas was terrifying. In a moment of utter disbelief, Andrea tried to step around him, but the guard, convinced he was safeguarding the neighborhood's integrity, aimed the stun gun at her. The crackle of electricity filled the air, and within seconds, Andrea found herself collapsing onto the manicured lawn, her body jolted by the voltage coursing through her. Panic surged as her breathing became labored and tears blurred her vision. Behind her, Margaret Harrison was losing her battle for life, the minutes slipping away like grains of sand through an hourglass. As the minutes passed and the ambulance remained locked outside, Margaret succumbed to her heart's chaos without ever receiving the help she so desperately needed. By the time help arrived nearly 15 minutes later, paramedics alerted by Thomas, there was no saving her. The tragedy became a tale of horror that would rattle through Maplewood Grove like a thunderclap. News of Andrea's assault spread among the tight-knit community with astonishing speed, igniting outrage and disbelief. Neighbors who had once engaged in polite conversations over fences now found themselves plunged into a tempest of anger and grief. Families who had previously spent warm summer evenings discussing trivial neighborhood issues became united in their condemnation of the guard's excessive force. The fragile peace of their community had been irreparably shattered, its idyllic visage tarnished. For Marcus, the guard, the aftermath was complicated. He defended his actions, claiming he was merely following the HOA's stringent regulations against unauthorized entry. "We can't take risks with safety protocols. It's our policy to protect homeowners," he explained, but the community was not buying it. They demanded accountability for the death that many believed could have been prevented, if not for an overzealous policy that prioritized rules over human lives. Waves of anger washed over the board of directors of the Maplewood Grove HOA. Comprised of well-meaning individuals who had once focused on minor disputes over driveway stains and seasonal decorations, they now faced an unprecedented crisis. The roaring storm of public outrage threatened not just their authority, but their entire governance structure. Labeled as complicit, they stood scrutinized by a populace awakened to the perils of unchecked authority. Emotions flared high as Thomas Harrison, crushed by the loss of his beloved wife, announced his intent to seek justice. Joined by a fierce attorney, Veronica Grayson, known for her relentless pursuit of justice, he became the voice for so many who shared in his grief. The ensuing lawsuit would challenge the HOA and its board members, illuminating the pervasive atmosphere of fear and regulation that had led to Margaret's tragic fate. As both sides prepared for battle, the community seemed to fracture, with residents taking sides, some defending the HOA's previous policies, while others demanded sweeping reforms. The board was confronted with emails from anxious neighbors asking if they would accept accountability for Margaret's death. Andréa Hartman. The name rang through the community, evoking both sympathy and rage. The paramedic's life had been forever altered, leaving her with physical and emotional scars from the shocking encounter. What had once been the foundation of her career was now filled with doubt and trauma. She returned to work, but recovery was slow, as each day brought with it new reminders of what had occurred that day at the Harrison household. Through the turmoil, textbook community meetings transformed into heated debates. The core of the HOA's policies was criticized, and the traumatic incident prompted residents to question how much security was too much. Was their safety net becoming a prison? As the case progressed, the atmosphere in Maplewood Grove shifted from quiet complacency to an unexpected awakening, igniting discussions of humanity, community care, and compassion drowned out by a fortress mentality. With the trial date looming, people across the city braced themselves for the implications of the lawsuit. The courtroom thrummed with palpable tension as the Harrison family and their representatives prepared to present their case. Experts were called to discuss the importance of immediate emergency care, and residents who had witnessed the confrontation recounted the heartbreaking moment Andréa collapsed, as hope dissipated along with Margaret's final breath. Each witness added weight to the burgeoning narrative, painting a picture of a community governed by fear, ruled over by regulations that prioritized property over lives. As the trial drew to a close, the debate intensified, loaded with potent questions about accountability and moral responsibility. We're here not just for Margaret, but for everyone in this community, Veronica declared during her closing statements, her voice resonating powerfully within the courtroom. No one should have to worry about dying at the hands of bureaucracy when help is just a moment away. On the other side of the courtroom, the defense struggled to maintain cohesion as their narrative crumbled under the weight of evidence that suggested their security protocols had indeed led to catastrophe. They portrayed Marcus as an unwilling participant in a script written by the board, emphasizing how he had simply followed orders. However, as the jury listened, it became evident that the underlying issue was that the establishment prioritized protocol over compassion, turning an emergency response into a dire test of authority. As the jury contemplated their verdict over the following few days, both sides held their breath. What would the decision mean for the future of the community, its governance, and its very essence? Ultimately, the verdict came down solidly in favor of Thomas Harrison and the estate of his late wife, resulting in significant financial penalties against the HOA, reverberating through the community like an earthquake. In the ensuing chaos, the board was forced into a reckoning, and the neighborhood watched as familiar faces withdrew from their leadership roles, abandoning a sinking ship. The security policies that had once been implemented to protect residents now lay exposed as a failed experiment in governance, breeding not security, but discord. Neighbors began advocating passionately for change, gathering signatures for petitions to dismantle the existing HOA structure, throwing their hands into the fight for a new era of participation and inclusivity. The community evolved before their eyes. An unprecedented movement toward compassion took root, where life, not safety protocols, reigned supreme. As for Andréa Hartman, though her scars from that day remained, her spirit to aid others shone ever brighter. She took the podium at community gatherings, sharing not just her personal story, but a vision for a united Maplewood Grove. In her heart, she yearned for a space where love and care triumphed over fear. In the weeks and months that followed, Maplewood Grove transformed. New leadership emerged, along with humanity-driven policies that celebrated connection rather than division. The alarms grew silent, replaced by simple signals of neighbors looking out for one another. The struggle for dignity and compassion, echoing in the wake of Margaret Harrison's untimely demise, had created a beautiful resurgence of community spirit. A place where emergency responders were treated with the respect and importance they deserved. And as seasons changed, so too did the heart of Maplewood Grove, embodying resilience and love in a world once divided. In the end, as flowers bloomed in every yard, residents embraced a future built on trust, empathy, and understanding. A lasting legacy born of tragedy that would serve to remind all who lived in Maplewood Grove of the power of community when united in the pursuit of human dignity and care.